hot points, poorest regions and epidemics epicenters. International organizations carry out their activities in parts of the world where they are critical for people. They unite countries and continents, save millions of lives and solve global problems. Watch more on this in Kazakhstan International Vectors. Poverty is in retreat. The UN is drawing the conclusions of the Millennium Development Goals. More than 1 billion people overcame the threshold of poverty, extreme need and hunger. Honor to where honor is due. Kazakhstan assists in promotion of regional and global security.
Kazakhstan has initiated or co-sponsored a series of General Assembly resolutions.
Charity. This sphere is developing from year to year. Last year, the number of philanthropists in the world increased by 200 million people. According to sociologists, only in Kazakhstan 90% of population are ready to help those in need. Doing it nowadays is much easier and people have become more sympathetic than before, says Ilyas Kubriyanov. Indeed, modern technologies allow to render help at a distance within a very short period of time, he adds. I started to work for charitable causes when I faced problems and my family turned into a sort of action team, which helped me to solve my problems. After that, we understood that our society and our country needed a well-developed charity sector. 4 years ago, Ilyas, with a group of supporters, decided to establish a charity organization to help families with low incomes and children suffering from oncological diseases. How does Ilyas help seriously ill children and who initiated nuclear disarmament? Coming up next. Economic, political and social issues at the international level are solved by the United Nations organization. The General Assembly is its main deliberative body. The UN General Assembly is the principal deliberative, decision-making and representative body of the United Nations organization. It consists of 193 countries. The Assembly was established in 1945 with the headquarters in New York, the US.
The United Nations General Assembly is one of 6 what we call principal organs that were established with the UN Charter.
Due to the large scope of work and issues to be solved, the General Assembly divides its functions between 6 committees. The first one specializes in disarmament and international security. In particular, it deals with the situation in the Middle East, the problem of refugees, military budget reduction and conclusion of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Kazakhstan was the world's 4th largest state with an inherited nuclear potential and which then abandoned nuclear weapons and became the state party of the Treaty on Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. At the suggestion of the UN, the day 29th of August was proclaimed as the International Day Against Nuclear Tests. Nowadays, this issue still does not lose its importance as not all the nuclear powers adopted the policy of peaceful coexistence under the UN. As a result, in 2009, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution which calls states to inform people about the consequences of nuclear explosions and necessity of their termination. President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, became the initiator of this document. Along with security, nuclear disarmament also allowed to attract foreign investments in the economy. From the first days of its membership in the UN, Kazakhstan took an active part in the work of the first committee, which dealt with this issue. Our country encouraged other states to follow the example of Kazakhstan to close its nuclear testing range and stop nuclear tests. So Kazakhstan became one of the first countries which signed this historical treaty on September the 30th. According to experts, countries benefit in many ways due to the UN membership. Kazakhstan, for instance, has become an active participant of international relations. And upon the initiative of the President of the Republic, the Conference on Interaction and Confidence-Building Measures in Asia, or CICMA, was established.
Эта инициатива была поддержана и признана.
The initiative was supported and recognized by the UN. It completely answers the UN Charter, including Article 8 of the UN Charter on Regional Agreements. CICMA nowadays significantly contributes into strengthening of stability, security and cooperation in all the spheres, including those related to finding responses to new challenges and threats of the 21st century.
И угрозы 21 века.
Tracking the UN budget, consisting of the member countries' contribution, is one of the General Assembly's principal functions.
Budget, or overseeing the budget, is one of the main functions of the UN General Assembly, and this is certainly going to be on the agenda of the General Assembly this year. Moreover, we are constantly striving to ensure that the United Nations is as relevant to the modern world and as efficient as possible.
The General Assembly elects members of the Security Council, another very important UN body. It is authorized to make decisions on a number of issues. It should be noted that decisions of other UN bodies are recommendatory.
One of the functions of the General Assembly is to vote on non-permanent members of the Security Council. Basically, it is up to the General Assembly to appoint those 10 non-permanent members of the Security Council, and as you know, Kazakhstan is aspiring to become one of those non-permanent members of the Security Council right now.
Ilyas decided to search for philanthropists via the internet. He considers this method one of the simplest and most reliable in the sphere of charity. He also posted sales announcements on websites of his partners. Clothes of Kazakhstani stars were chosen as objects of sale. The funds raised are transferred to accounts of clinics where seriously ill children receive treatment. At present, we have raised more than 285,000 tenge. Owing to this project, we covered medical treatment expenses of 3 children. This is the official website of our organization. In the section called We Help Them, we post photos of children who have already received charitable assistance. In some cases, we assumed all the treatment expenses, and in other cases, we covered some part of costs. In total, we have helped more than 40 children. Along with online fundraising, Ilyas and his team installed plastic boxes in supermarkets and gas stations. Presently, there are only 25 of them. Soon, the volunteers plan to place 80 more such boxes. Boxes allow people to make an immediate decision whether to help others or not. People can approach the box and drop there some change. And it will be an important charity contribution and which can save a child's life. Why did Ilyas decide to invest in education, and how does the world achieve the Millennium Development Goals? Coming up next. After the World War II, governments of many countries felt a need to create a mechanism which would prevent any wars in the future. There was a common understanding that it could not only be done by joint effort. Therefore, to achieve this goal, a universal organ was needed. After a number of international conferences and negotiations, the UN Charter was adopted and signed by the majority of countries. Finally, the United Nations Organization was established on October 24, 1945.
Основная цель этой организации была
The main goal of this organization is preventing world wars which brought to humankind inexpressible grief. So among the principal tasks of the United Nations Organization are maintenance of the international peace and development of amicable relations between nations based on the principles of sovereign equality.
Второе это
15 years ago, the UN set before the entire world the Millennium Development Goals, which had to be achieved before 2015. These are 8 international goals accepted by 193 states and more than 20 large organizations. Among these goals are eradication of poverty and hunger, reducing of children's mortality rate, and making elementary education available throughout the world. All these measures are focused on improving livelihood of the whole humankind. The UN got the implementation of these tasks under a strict control. Annually, the UN General Secretary announced before the Assembly the data about the progress achieved in this area.
В 2000 году
These Millennium Development Goals were set in 8 areas. For instance, the principal goal is to ensure the reduction of population living in extreme poverty and earning less than $1 a day. This July, the UN drew up conclusions on the Millennium Goals. Thus, for example, between 1991 and 2015, the number of people belonging to the working middle class increased almost 3 times, and the number of undernourished persons in developing countries was reduced almost twice. According to the Millennium Development Goals, for the last 15 years, the number of people living in extreme poverty reduced from 2 billion to 836 million.
также по другим
The children's mortality rate dropped by 40%. 2.6 billion people around the world were ensured the access to drinking water. These are really great achievements. Along with that, the maternal mortality rate reduced by 45% since 1991. The UN has also succeeded in the sphere of disease control. Thus, for example, in the period between 2000 and 2013, new cases of HIV infection declined from 3.5 million to 2 million. Ilyas's plans also include assisting the development of medical education. He is sure that the increasing number of specialists in this area will help to cure more children. Probably we shall open some grants for social professions and use the resources of the fund for educating doctors and teachers. I think that outflow of capital has a negative effect on our country. I don't understand why we, people of Kazakhstan, collect money and then export it to foreign states. In spite of the impressive results of the Millennium Development Goals, UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon noted that there is still a lot to do and not all the countries achieve the progress.
Но, как отмечается в докладе,
As the report underlines, these achievements are not equal. Unfortunately, there are significant differences in various rates between states as well as within one and the same country. Therefore, there are a lot of things to do as more than 800 million people still live in poverty. Currently, 57 million children do not visit schools. Another 16,000 die for reasons that could be prevented. Along with that, about 60 million people leave their houses due to military and other conflicts.
The whole range of crises and other issues that are faced by the international community, particularly those having to do with security, with various crises, including the refugee crisis.
Therefore, the UN has a lot of tasks to complete. All they require a common effort from states and international associations. Solving these issues will have an impact on the UN new strategic plan, which is now being discussed at the 70th session of the UN General Assembly. Because of that, instead of the Millennium Development Goals, the UN has worked out the Sustainable Development Goals. They were adopted in the end of September and stated in this report. In total, there are 17 goals. All they are focused on the eradication of poverty, and humankind is capable to do that. Among other issues to be discussed are ecological threats such as climate change and degradation of soils. Therefore, states will face new challenges. Among them are ensuring access to modern energy sources, environmental protection and stimulating the economic growth without damaging the environment. There are a lot of examples throughout the world when tragic events turned people into philanthropists. The case with Terry Fox is one of them. The young man was diagnosed bone cancer and had his leg amputated in the age of 19. After that, he created a project called the Marathon of Hope, where he decided to collect $1 from each Canadian citizen. Terry died 3 years later. Nonetheless, his campaign achieved the goal set by its founder and gathered $24 million. For reference, at that time, the population of Canada reached exactly 24 million people.